Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming out midweek, 6:30 in the evening. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think we've got some important stuff to discuss. My name is Inspector Keith Durrance, and I'm the local commander here in Wetaskiwin. We also cover, our detachment covers a pretty large area. Got some folks here from the county. We cover an area from just on the other side of Pigeon Lake near the park, to Highway 611 to the south, out to and including Gwyn, and just on the other side of Gwyn, and all the way up to Kavanaugh in the north. That's our entire detachment area that's policed out of Wetaskiwin here. Again, thank you for coming. We had a really good turnout, and we've had a couple of town halls out in the county already. We had one out at Pigeon Lake last week, very well attended. We had one out at New Norway the week before that was really well attended for being the coldest night of the year. We had over 110 people at New Norway Hall, which was a fantastic turnout, and we had a real good meeting. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome you guys to our annual performance plan and our community feedback session for upcoming policing priorities coming starting in April 1st. Being a federal organization, our year runs from April 1st to March 31st, just like the taxes. Okay, I run just like the taxes. I don't take anything from them. So this is our preliminary prep work. Part of building an annual performance plan is to get community feedback, and that's what we're here to get today, and to discuss issues that we see in our community, and give you guys some feedback on what we're doing to combat those, and kind of give you a state of the union of our detachment and how things are going. So our annual performance plan, it's a roadmap or a kind of a list of priorities that I use, our detachment people use, in providing policing services to the community. Every detachment in the RCMP has to have one of these. So it doesn't matter whether you're in a 3 or 4 man detachment in Oyen, Alberta, or whether you're in Sherwood Park in one of the bigger ones in the province here. Every detachment has an annual performance plan. Okay, and again, it's a roadmap for how, in our detachment, our management team and our members, how we provide services to Wetaskiwin. It also has a component called the ULQA. The ULQA is kind of like a quality assurance. It's kind of us to check on internal operations inside the detachment. So if we had say we had a bunch of frauds in the community there, and maybe we weren't having a lot of success at prosecuting these frauds inside the court system, then we would look at our investigations and do a kind of a review of all of our investigations and see where we might be falling short or where we could do things, and develop some best practices and or create a new policy inside the detachment or something to that effect. Perhaps there's some new case law that our members weren't aware of, and we have to apply that and get that information out to all the members in the detachment so that they can do a more thorough investigation. That runs also inside the annual performance plan. We'll pick 3 or 4 items inside the detachment that we want to review, and we'll review. And it could be anything from boat maintenance to quality investigations. Okay, each year I have to prepare that, and part of that is, like I explained, is community consultation, and that's what we're doing here tonight. So I'll do town halls in the west, I'll do a town hall in the east, I'll do one here, I'll do one in Millet, and then from there I take what you guys think the priority should be for the area, what things are causing you guys concern. I then canvass my members inside the detachment and say, okay, what do you guys think the priorities should be? And then I also talk to local councils, county council, city council, and or the council in Millet, and I'll get the feedback from the councilors and find out what their constituents might be giving them in emails or in conversations, coffee talk, or whatever, and then we put together our plan for the year. So this last year we had 3 priorities. The priorities are in red. The items in black are initiatives that we're putting forward to combat those different priorities. The one main one, and it's been the main one since I've been here, is property crime. Okay? And these are some of the priorities we worked through. The bait vehicle program was in town, holding a minimum of 6 suppression shifts, conducting further 3 license plate screw campaigns, such initiatives like this. Inside this is also, we'll talk about a little later, is also prolific offender management. We'll talk to that in a little bit. So these are the three main priorities. Sometimes I get a priority from headquarters that says you will have this as one of your priorities, and that's the bottom one, support employee wellness. It's one big movement in the RCMP, and we've talked about the Bell Let's Talk program and things like that. It's very much a big priority within the RCMP and has been for the last couple of years, but they provided that one, so we had to have that. Okay, some criminal code offenses and some of the results we have. Overall persons crimes, reported persons crimes in the city, and now we're talking just the city here. Okay, this is the city numbers. Provincial numbers are different again. Again, persons crimes down 20%, property crime up 4%. I don't like red. I don't like it going this way. I'll turn that one around. And other criminal code is down 12%. These ones that are going downward are consistent across central Alberta, and I think I boldly say it's kind of going in the same direction within the province. Overall, 7% increase in criminal code offenses. Now, property crime. The one dinger that made it go up by 4% was break and enters. It was up 36% this last year, from 218 occurrences to 296. Not a number I'm happy with. But overall, our property crime is down 7%. But if it wasn't for the 36 increase, we would have had a much better number on property crime. Now, we don't have a run on home invasions. We don't have a run on people going in and cleaning out people's houses with electronics equipment and that sort of stuff. A lot of these break-and-enters are breaking into a detached garage, a shed, or if they are going into a residence, maybe they're getting in partway and they're just stealing some small items. They don't have break-and-enters where somebody's kicking in the door and they're completely loading everything out of the house. Okay, we also don't have a big run on home invasion break-and-enters where somebody's breaking into somebody's house to do crime to those people. We do have a few, but that is not the case here. What's driving this is some of the drug trade and also the fact they have an opportunity to steal something that's small that maybe nail or hold it down that they can fence and then sell off. Okay, annual performance plan. These are some initiatives that a list of, actually this was Fort McMurray, my previous life. These are some of the issues that the community concerns that came from Fort McMurray. I'm just putting these up here as an example of some of the initiatives that may cause our community some concern. I'm not saying this is the be-all end-all. I'm not saying that your list needs to match this. I'm just giving you an idea of what some of the items are that we could be looking at as far as community concerns. One of the main ones I said earlier, and it has been for the last couple of years, is property crime. Okay. Some numbers here. Any guesses? Now, somebody who saw my presentation last year, somebody, any ideas what these numbers are? A key part of our property crime. Guesses?
Where the offenses occurred?
Nope. Well, yes, where they occurred for sure. What crime type?
Unlocked vehicle?
Close. Number of stolen vehicles where the keys were stolen with the vehicle. Okay? Folks out in the rural area, they're real trusting. The city as well. If we wanted to make a real bite at a property crime, this is one we could do it. Okay? I had an injured member. He went through every single auto theft file we had in 2018, and this is the number we came back with. 38% of the vehicles that were stolen in the city of Wetaskiwin were stolen with the keys. They were left running. The vehicle was left with the keys in the center console. The keys were hanging in a nail inside the garage, or on just a couple of occasions, the keys were hanging just inside the door, on a nail just inside the door. And the the door was left unattended, the guy's out doing yard work, and somebody just went in and grabbed the keys, stole the vehicle. We have some vehicles that are stolen because they're easy to steal. Ford 250s, 350s, 450s of about a 8 to 10 year vintage are very easy to steal. Screwdriver, crank it, hit it with a hammer. It's just to make a flaw in the maker of the vehicle, and they can turn the key and away they go, they're down the road. Those ones, okay, we can understand that those ones may not have had the keys with them. Okay. But one of the first things my members look for when they recover a vehicle is there center console, is there steering column damage? Has the vehicle actually been physically stolen? Or there's no damage and the vehicle was stolen because it was left running with the keys in the ignition? Okay? Questions on that? I think we could put a pretty good run on auto theft here if we just locked up our keys. Or at least to start.
And don't buy a Ford.
Sorry?
Don't buy
Well, I can't say don't buy a Ford. Heaven forbid, I can't say that. Henry and his relatives will be all over me. Okay. Here's another one for you. Some of you have seen this presentation before. I'll let you guys think on this one. And this is one of our key strategies in the community here. We have some, and when we can apply this principle on a continuous basis, we have some very good success with it. Guesses?
10% of the people do 80% of the crime.
Sorry?
10% of the people do 80% of the crime.
Absolutely. 8 to 10% of the bad guys are doing 80% of the crime, depending on which study you read. And whether you're studying the state numbers or Canadian numbers, this is pretty close. Sometimes I can go up to 12-ish or down to 7, depends. I'm just ballparking this. Consistently, 8 to 10% of our bad guys are doing 80% of the crime. So prolific offender management is one of our key principles in Wetaskiwin. We keep an eye on this group, we should be able to take a big chunk out of that 80%. Curfew checks, bail violations, ensuring that if they have a strict bail conditions, multiple different conditions on someone's release, those same, and if we have success on that, then we apply those same bail principles to their probation afterwards. Okay? Our crime reduction team we have 4 members, 2 from the rural side and 2 from the city side, and this is a bulk of their work right here. He's going out and knocking on the door. The guy's on a probation, and he has a curfew from 10 o'clock in the evening until 7 o'clock in the morning. Midnight, they're at the door going knock, 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 trick or treat, it's the heat. Okay? And Johnny will come to the door and say, yes, I'm home. Okay? If he's ordered to do that. Most probation orders or most bail conditions are like that. They have to come to the door, present themselves to the door, and say, I'm here. Okay? Another good partnership with this is working with probation. We meet every 2 weeks. We meet with probation. They give us an idea of the 8 to 10%, how they're doing on their probation, whether they're not attending, whether they're partaking in any programs that they're telling them to take, how they're doing with that. But one of the big key things is this residency requirement. You will live at this address and you will abide by a curfew. Sometimes that changes. They'll go to the probation officer and say, hey, well, this ain't really working out. I want to go live with my auntie over here, or I want to live with my uncle or my grandparents or whatever. Their family dynamics has changed. They'll get a letter saying, okay, you can go live there. We have to ensure that we're going to the right place to check these people. Because if we go to the old address and he's not there, then we're looking to breach him and throw him back in jail. Okay? So we have to keep up on this. So another real good partnership is actually our probation officers are coming out with our crime reduction guys and actually going and doing the door knock with us. This gives the probation officer an opportunity to see where they're living, who they're hanging out with, and maybe there's some people in there that he's not supposed to be hanging out with, and then perhaps there's a breach there. Our personal favorite is when we knock on the door and we say, oh, you guys again, yeah, I'm here, and everything else, blah, blah, blah. Oh, by the way, I'm moving. I'm talking to my probation officer and I'm moving. Oh, this probation officer? And usually the story is a little bit different. Okay? So, that's one of our main strategies. Targeting political offenders, it's intelligence-driven enforcement, street enforceable conditions, on bail release conditions, and probation orders. Okay? Again, targeting that 8 to 10%. Community engagement. Citizens on patrol. Block Talk. Rural Crime Watch. Neighborhood Watch. These are all programs where citizens like yourself either volunteer their time or there are eyes and ears out there in the community. And we still need information from you guys. And if you've heard my presentation before, we don't solve B&Es one at a time. Every once in a while we do. We bump into them as they're coming out the door, but it's rare. The way in which we solve break-and enters and or serial crimes is getting a piece of information from each one of the crimes, putting it together, and then supporting one global investigation saying, okay, these 3 or 4 break-and enters, they're stealing the same thing, they're using the same method of entry, they're on the same day, we have the same running shoe impressions, therefore one could say, yeah, the same guy did these 3 crimes. Okay? Some tips, and I have over here, I have some of these tips in a handout form if you want to take these with. Crime prevention stuff, personal property, safety. Turn on lights, install timers, don't leave keys in the vehicle, biggie right there. Park recreational locked garages, sheds. If you don't park indoors, park recreational vehicles, site chain to something if you have to. Install surveillance cameras. Again, surveillance cameras, if you go Cabela's and or Canadian Tire, trail cameras work really good. We use them. We have several of them that we'll set up in certain areas, lease sites, things like that, trouble areas, trouble locations. We'll put them up. If you put one up on your driveway, see if you can put 2 up, or if you have main entryway, put one so you can see them coming in, and have one going out so you can see them going out. Okay. Now, if you have a long driveway, I mean, we're in the city here, but this is more of a country thing where put it up so you can see the vehicle coming in and the license plate going out. Mark your items, serial numbers. I see a fella here has a little video cam. Go around with your video camera or your phone and just say, I have a Sony, I date myself here. I have a Sony Walkman. It's yellow. Here's my TV. It's a JVC or it's a Sony or whatever it is. And then maybe have your friend, your daughter, your uncle, your relative of some sort just read the serial number off the back. And then you have a permanent record of that. If you want to make a hard record, make a hard record. Put it in a computer, put it in a file. As long as they don't steal your computer, you're good to go. Right? Your insurance company is going to want a list of items that are stolen. One of our biggest issues that we have is we'll find a whole bunch of stolen property. We found out in the rural area, a 22-foot trailer full of stolen property. It took 3 members, the better part of 2 weeks, to try and figure out where all this property and who it belonged to. We knew it was all stolen, but trying to marry it up with the owner was a bit of a struggle. And then, as a result, because we can't identify that quad belongs to that person, or that weed whacker belongs to Joe Blow, we're not able to lay a charge there, or it's very difficult to lay a charge there. So it's only the stuff with big ticket items with serial numbers and license plates and things like that where we can actually get back to the owner and get a statement from them, we're able to prove that they're in fact stolen. But it is a struggle to try and get this property back to people. We'll get a backpack full of stuff. That's all my stuff. I'm moving from this place to this. You know, the story doesn't jive, don't get me wrong. A lot of times they don't get this property back. We know it's stolen. We just seize it, but then we can't get it back and we have a hard time laying charge. So, put your engraving tools, stencils. I talk about tools, lay them out on a workbench, pick 2 colors out of your spray can and go all the way down the workbench. My tools are blue and green. How can you tell? Well, they got a blue paint on the bottom and they got a green paint on the top. Good enough for me on an ID. That all belongs to so-and-so. If you want to keep it in the family, one's blue and green, one's green and red, one's, you know what I mean? Where we're going with that. Okay, what to do if you're a victim of crime? Progress. If it is a crime in progress, call 911. If you find that your shed's been broken into over the weekend and you just got back from Calgary, call the complaint line here. Okay? So, in progress, after the fact, here. And I appreciate that this can be a wait sometimes, and longer than I would like it to be. That is all. Now I'm going to let you guys talk. So, off the hop, policing priorities for Wetaskiwin City. We talked about it before. Do you want me to go back to that one screen? Oh, there we go. So there's some ideas. Doesn't have to be on the list. It can be your own list.
Where do you go to see the items that were stolen? Do you still have them? Some?
Some we did. I think that was back in the summer. Most have been moved on.
Okay, the meth houses in town.
Meth houses.
It's fairly obvious that these people are stealing to feed
Yep.
their habits.
Yeah, meth is cheap.
Stealing from us.
The high is long. Okay, when I was here in Wetaskiwin the second time, it was crack cocaine, powder cocaine, weed. I was here for almost 3 years between here and Musquecheese, and I think we only had one meth seizure in the whole time I was here. Now it's completely flipped on the other end. It's all meth now. Okay?
About heroin.
Not much. Not saying it's not around, it is. More likely to be fentanyl than heroin, but it would be a mix. And or meth with fentanyl. Little cocktail.
What's being done about
Meth houses, not difficult, but extremely time consuming. What we have is we'll set up surveillance on a house. We want to see some transaction, either take a statement from somebody that sees it all the time, observe the comings and goings. Then we have to do what we call a couple of takeaways, which is we'll surveil somebody away, take them down, arrest them, find the drugs on them, interview them. Yeah, I got it from Joe Blow on the corner, walk and don't walk. Then we got a search warrant, and we go. Very labor intensive. Not undoable, but very labor intensive. We do a lot of our drug work is done doing prolific offender management. We see Joey and he's not supposed to be where he is. We search him and we search him incidental to the arrest and we find the drugs in his pocket. You got to remember we have to have a statutory reason to stop somebody. It's not a frisk and search. You've heard of that. Everybody heard of frisk and search? We don't have that in Wetaskiwin. We have to have a statutory reason to stop somebody. That could be jaywalking. Okay? But we need a statutory ground to stop somebody, discuss with them, and then try and form grounds for arrest. Once we find grounds for arrest, we can then search them incidental to arrest, and then we can get the dope off. Different if we see a hand-to-hand. If we see a hand-to-hand, it's clearly a hand-to-hand drug deal. That gives us grounds to arrest under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, and then we'll search incidental to that.
These young
Yes.
people that vapor, is there drugs involved in that too?
Young people where, sorry?
Vapor.
Vape? No.
Sir, could you
They could-
repeat what you're answering, because we can't.
Can't hear you?
back here.
Okay, sorry.
Whoever's asking.
Oh, okay, yeah, absolutely. She wants to know about the kids and vaping, if that's drug related. No, I'm not saying it couldn't be. They could have some hash oil in that or something like that, but highly unlikely that it's necessarily drug related. I'm not saying it couldn't be. It's more so just smoking, vaping, for the most part. We don't have a big run on weed oil dealers here in Wetaskiwin. Not saying you can't get it.
No.
Just saying it's not prolific.
Well, they just come and go all the time, so that's
Yeah.
what I'm wondering.
Very much. Priorities. Property crime, break and enters. I'm in. Got me. Okay, had me at hello. Yes, sir.
Oh, me.
Yeah.
Prolific offenders.
Prolific offenders, yes, sir.
When you read in the paper and your members charge somebody with 8 or 10 offenses, one of them is breach of condition.
Yes.
They go before the camera, they get bail. The court seems like it's just a revolving door. And how is a member supposed to have pride in what he does when our court system doesn't back the office?
Good. And I'm glad you brought that up,
I know
sir.
you can't answer because you like to be...
I'll answer. I'm not scared. I'm fireproof. My boss is right behind you. It's frustrating for our members. There's no doubt about that. Okay? It's different than when I was on the front line where you put somebody in jail, they breach a few times, and you throw them in. There's no bail. You bail denied. They go to the remand center, and they're in until such time as they see a trial. And what that used to prompt was early guilty pleas. People used to plead guilty. And they put together a plea deal, and they say, and the judge would still put the hammer down and say, you're going for 6 months seated. You're right, sir. There is a bit of a revolving door. It comes down to court capacity, number of judges, number of crown prosecutors. The province made an announcement here several months ago that they're hiring an extra 50 crown prosecutors. I would say, good start. But here's the thing, we need 50 judges to go along with that. Okay, there's another chink in the chain here, and that's the judges. All right? Now, I don't want to bash on the justice system, but I will. Okay? They said anywhere from 13 to 18 hours of trial time on a trial day. That's actually what's set to go to trial on a Friday in Wetaskiwin would be about 18 hours worth of trial. There ain't no 18 hours of trial going on there. Okay? Then it comes down to capacity. So then you'll see plea deals. You'll see guys charged with 15 offenses, a whole bunch of breaches, and he pleads guilty to, say, 3 or 4. Maybe he'll get 30 days in jail and a fine and out the door, and the revolving door starts again. Right? It's frustrating for our members, but what I tell our members is this. You come to work, put your head down, go hard, put the bad guys in jail, and you put together the best package you can. You get the statements, you do good notes, you write good reports, and you put together a grade A court case in writing, and you give it to the prosecutor, and then, okay, once it's out of your hands, it's out of your hands. Okay, try not to get frustrated. I get it. He gets out in 30 days. We'll just be right there and knock on his door and put him back in again. But it comes down to capacity. So we see that revolving door. It comes down to capacity at the remand center. They're less likely to deny bail on somebody who should really have their bail denied. So they'll say, okay, $1,000 this time. And then $1,500 next week when we arrest you again. And $2,000 cash bail the next time. Or it starts at $1,000 no deposit, then it goes to $1,500 no deposit, then it goes to $2,000 no deposit. Again, it's all capacity. There's no room in the remand center. So the judges and the justice of the peace are more likely to be more lenient on bail and releasing criminals than they are in years gone by, back when I was just a pup, 30 years ago, where it used to be, 2, 3 failed to appears on your record, remanded, go, no bail. It doesn't matter what you did, right? Theft under, theft over, 2 or 3 B&Es, forget about it. If you had a couple of failed to appears on your record and a history of a B&E, remanded, go. Bail denied. But that's not the case anymore. So all I do is I stress with our members is, you do your job, you do it the best of your ability, and don't be the cause for why the Crown Prosecutor is going to look at the file and go, well, that was done poorly, and out the door it goes. You guys deserve better, right? So we do a bang-up job as best we can. We're all human. I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like everybody else, right? And so do my members. They have good days and bad days, right? So the big thing is you come to work, you do the job, best job you can. Yes, it's frustrating, but you just keep being there, and don't be the cause of why the Crown's going to pull your charge. Good question, sir. Yes, sir.
In that situation, what can we do as a community To try and encourage the change.
Talk to your MLA and talk to your MP. Blow up Lake Spawn. Okay? Crown prosecutors, judges is prevention. But the case law that lets people get out and, you know, and the judges being a little soft, that's federal. Okay? Criminal code is a federal legislation. Right? You want to see changes to the criminal code? Talk to Mike Lake. You want to see changes to the justice system, have more judges and more prosecutors? Talk to Rick. Okay? Two different venues of government, but that's where it needs to be. Yes, ma'am. And then back to you, sir.
And I'm not sure how this is determined, but do we have enough police here in Wetaskiwin?
We're still a little short. When I first came to Wetaskiwin in May of 2017, I came in, we were looking for the calls of service, the guys and gals. When I say guys, I mean guys and gals, okay? So we got great folks there. So I came, we were a little short here. So the first thing I did was when I came to Wetaskiwin was called a PRM study, which is a Police Resource Methodology Study. And what that is I go up to the bean counters up at the analyst people up in headquarters, and they say, okay, Wetaskiwin, here's the number of crimes you have, here's the crime type, you know, and what they do is they stick all those numbers into a computer. Here's the number of members you have, here's the population, and then they spit out a number, and they say, Keith, you're 6 members short. So I go to council, Tyler and his crew, and I do application before budget saying I need to increase. We've increased 4.5 members of the 6 over the last 3 years, and 2 support staff. We're still 1.5 short from the original 6. There's been almost 0 increase on the provincial side up till the announcement that the minister made here just a few weeks ago. The last real increase we saw in the provincial membership at the detachment was back when Eddie Stelmach was the premier. Excuse me. And there's a premier initiative, they call it. They scattered out a few bunch of members throughout the province and increased the membership on the provincial side. But that's where we're at now. We're still short, but we're better off than where we were before.
So with that being said, I mean, obviously, the people cannot be everywhere at one time. That's understandable.
Yes.
So is it possible, because I was really surprised tonight to find out the large area that you're responsible for. So is it possible that there's some kind of incident going on in the county or near Kavanaugh, and we have an incident here where we dial 911 if someone's coming into my home, and none of your members are including the city? Is there times where we are not present here?
It's very rare to have nobody in the city. It would going to have to be a pretty hellacious event where everyone goes out of the city to go do something somewhere else. I have experienced watch supervisor corporals who have lots of service, who manage the resources that we have at the time. Okay? It's a good neighbor agreement at the moment with the county, the provincial side of things, and the city. All right? The provincial members that are paid for by the province that work and police and are on the books to police the county help the city. The members in the city help the folks in the country. Okay? It's one of the benefits of having a large detachment in our area and a bit of a hub is the fact that when we have a very major event here in the city and we've got 5 or 6 members all over this crime scene trying to hold it for several days, the provincial guys are backing up the city guys. We call it the post model. Doesn't matter inside our detachment area, doesn't matter where you're paid for by the city or the province. You go and you help. But good point. It's rare. Guys manage, saying, okay, we got something going up there. Okay, you 2 guys go. Okay, you need 1 more. Okay, 1 more. I'll stay with the other 2 guys and we'll look after the city. We got to manage those resources. We got to make sure we got to keep somebody back at home base. Now, we're more likely to get strung out all over the city. And then when you pick up the phone and you make your call saying, now we got a triage. We've got a domestic over here, lady's been beat up really bad, that's going to take 2 members, maybe even 3. Well, now we only got a couple more left, and now we got to break and enter down on the south end of town, and we got something going on at the north end of town. That can happen all the time. We get 4, 5, 6 calls for service all at the same time. Once again, my corporal will manage that. Go to that can wait. Right? So something called, okay, that one has to still wait, but we got to go to this one now. Okay? All our calls come in on a priority, 1 to 4. Priority 1s and 2s, those are the bad ones, right? We go to first. Right? People first, property second. If someone's in danger, we go there first. Assault, progress, whatever. If it's property crime, okay, it takes the back of the bus to the people. Okay. Yes, ma'am?
I know you just go with statute having calls, but I really don't think that property crime is going down that much. I know somebody that lives on a certain street and they are on an alley, and she said there's people back and forth, they had so much stuff stolen from their area that they don't even bother calling you anymore. Because half the time nobody shows up. Or it's, you know, it's just, they might write a little report, and that's it. So they're just so frustrated. And they sort of accepted the fact that they're going to, that people are going to come into their property and steal their stuff. And they're just sort of living with it.
Yeah, and it's a shame that we've gotten to that position, ma'am, and it's a good point. However, I encourage people to continue to call. That one small piece of information, the description of the person that you might have, we may have stopped the person 4 blocks over. You know, something's happening, you know, on the north end of town, and we're all busy on the south end of town, and then we come up and then we find this person walking down the sidewalk that may or may not be the guy. If we got 1 or 2 calls, and one person sees, oh yeah, he had a black hat, next guy sees he had a red coat, next person says he's got white sneakers, now we have the, what colors were they again? I can't remember. Hat, jacket, sneakers, right? And okay, well this is the guy we're looking for, okay? Now we have reason to stop that person and search them. Okay? Sorry?
What if they didn't see anything like
Tough. Very, very tough. But the thing is, you hear something, you guys live in your neighborhoods, you know it. You've been there the longest, you know what should be there and what shouldn't be there. If you don't know who your neighbors are, go over, knock on the door, and introduce yourself. Back when I was a kid, my mom said, go take this to Miss Jorgensen's house. Well, I knew where that was. Right? Around the corner, 3rd house on the right. Right? I wasn't very old. I knew where Mrs. Jorgensen lived. Right? We've lost a lot of that. I mean, Wetaskiwin's still a pretty tight-knit community, and we don't change over as much as they do in the city. But you guys know what's suspicious in your vehicle or in your neighborhood and what doesn't. What belongs or what doesn't belong. Okay? But you're right, ma'am. If we don't see anything or we don't get a call, we can't come there and address it. Yes, ma'am.
I'm a little loud. All of this stuff that gets stolen, how much of it do you guys find at the pawn shop?
Good point.
I think so.
Yep, good point. We have a number of pawn shops in town. Sometimes we are able,
How many?
7 left.
7?
Yes.
Pawn shops?
Yes.
Oh, gosh.
I think that number's right. Trent? 7? Where's Trent?
Is that to go in the liquor stores?
There are, I think, 7 left. There used to be 13
Oh, wow.
at one point in time, back, I think, in the late, something.
So if somebody takes my grandson's lawnmower
Right.
into a pawn shop, what do they have to show that it's theirs?
Okay, good point, ma'am.
Do I have to paint it blue on one end and green on the other?
You could. Just paint the wheels.
I have to prove that it's mine, but they
Right.
have to prove yes.
That becomes problematic now.
Yes, it is.
One of the initiatives we're working towards is looking at a bylaw to regulate the pawn shops. And I don't want to use the R word too hard, but we're looking at that as a strategy on trying to curtail stolen property. We have had some very good results of people that record the description and also have the serial number for the item, and if we're quick enough and we can get around to the pawn shops and check, or phone the pawn shops. Some of the pawn shops are very cooperative with us, generally. And they'll say, look, oh yeah, I think we have that one here. And they would have to take ID or some sort of identification on who pawned that item. We're looking at going to a database which is called Business Watch International. And that program has a police access port to it, where from the desktop in the office, we can pull up Business Watch International, log in, and then we can query Husqvarna chainsaw. And we can query all the pawn shops in Wetaskiwin for a Husqvarna chainsaw from date range from here to here. Okay? Now, we still have to be able to try and identify that property, and that's the hard part, right? But we're working towards that.
7 pawn shops.
7, yeah.
Wow.
I think there's 7.
How many churches?
Yeah. Yes, sir. Sure, if they want.
So I'm speaking as the guy who's responded to 5 out of our 6 break-ins at Huckleberry's.
Right.
And so we've had 6 break-ins in the last 6 months, give or take.
Yep.
And there seems to be some sort of huge disconnect because the alarm company calls us and we say, should we send somebody? I said, yeah, the alarm's going off, send somebody.
Yep.
And they go, okay. And then 5 to 6 minutes later, they call back and say, well, we called dispatch, but dispatch won't send anybody. And we're like, okay, so I'm on my way. So
Right.
I show up,
Yep.
civilian, now at risk. Then I call 911 and say, hey, I'm here.
Yeah.
There's windows smashed, there's lights on, there's movement, there's whatever the hell it happens to be.
Right.
Then I gotta wait another 5 to 20 minutes, depending on what's going on.
Yep.
Where's that going? I've even had constables and stuff that have been in there, that have been on the phone, we put them back on with your dispatch that are like, hey, they've been broken in 3 times. If you get a call from them, they're high priority,
Yeah.
send somebody.
We need to flag that address, and then they will send someone.
Well,
Okay.
we've had, yeah, without names.
But
we've
here's
already named
the policy, and it's a bit of a policy jam. Because of the number of false alarms we get,
Right.
we don't dispatch to a one-hit
Right.
alarm. Now, if we get a front door break, glass break, perimeter, and motion, we're coming. They're dispatching that as a break and enter and as a legitimate alarm, right?
And I can see that being it.
Right.
But
But
in
if-
one of the cases, they literally ripped the alarm off the wall,
Okay.
and it wasn't enough to.
Okay, I don't know what was dispatched to our dispatch. We can talk after on the sidebar if you want.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, the policy is if we get a one-hit alarm, they're not sending the RCMP. Sometimes the alarm companies will say, no, don't send the RCMP, we'll send a rep. So they'll call a key holder, or they'll call someone from TPS Security will wheel around, or G4, no, they're on contract with Guardian Alarms or whatever, and they'll send one of their reps to go there. But sometimes we don't always we get the call afterwards. The rep gets there, oh yeah, it's breaking in, send the cops over, right? And then we go. But because of the volume of false alarms that we get that are one hit, we've had to institute a policy where we won't send the police on a one-hit alarm.
Could you quantify the number of false alarms you get?
Not off the top of my head.
Many a night?
Depending on the night. If it's windy, we get lots. If there's a storm, electrical storms, wind, really windy, you know those summer windstorms we get in the middle of the thunderstorms? That sends off alarms all over the place. It moves stuff inside or it rattles the windows, and then it can send off several alarms. Yes, ma'am?
Hey, lady in the blue first.
Hi.
Sorry, go ahead.
I've been here for a long time.
Sorry.
I've been stand for a long time, but I
I'm
was
sorry.
sent to the mic by Tyler.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hi. So my question is, so we've called a few times, like we have a couple, I have 2 examples. And so the first is just we're not really seeing the follow through from our
Okay.
officers. And so like you were saying that even jaywalking is grounds to stop someone. So we've called multiple times for the same person sleeping in unsafe locations,
Yes.
as in, trespassing and sleeping in unsafe locations, places where we don't feel like finding a dead body in the next day after they freeze to death
Yes.
or roast to death. We've called several times about this one gentleman. We've gotten a few different RCMP officers coming out to check on them, or bylaw coming to check on them. They don't search. They barely talk to them. They say, oh yeah, you can't really sleep here, like go find somewhere else to sleep. And then we talk to them and we're like, look, like this is like the 7th time we called for this person, which I don't know, maybe we're at like five times. And so we're like, look, we've called several times. Oh, well, if you get me next time, then I won't just let them, you know, wander off. Well, I mean, we've called 5 times. And then the other example is, so we had someone, they came to our house, they stole fuel from a vehicle, blah, blah, blah. We called the police, they came out, they're like, oh, well, do you really want to pursue this? Like you could be looking at some repercussions for pursuing this. Like, the person might come back to our house and damage it more. Like, we're already being targeted as a whole city. And so, you know, and nothing can be done about it. And when we do call, we get told, oh, well, you might be more victimized. People might come after you if you call us.
Should we have that conversation?
But it's happened.
If you're going to stay, I'll get your name after, and I'll maybe look in your matter. Okay.
Yeah.
But
I mean, so this is what's happening now, and so we're not seeing the follow through, at least on our end.
okay. Let me follow up with that. Okay.
But you're not going to address it in any way in this capacity?
Well, I don't know all the circumstances directly, but I'm saying the member shouldn't be talking you out of moving forward with the complaint. If you want a complaint and you want to lay a complaint, the member should be taking the complaint.
We did not move forward with the complaint. We're like, well, we're already being stolen from, so yeah, we want to pursue this, and nothing ever ended up coming of it, and it's really discouraging. But like, we call every single time. Half the time I get an operator, and they're like, oh, you're calling, like, you know, their tone is like, you're calling for that. It's like, well, yeah, I'm calling because somebody's grinding the tires on it, like the tire area on a trailer somewhere. Like, yes, of course I'm going to call that in because it's in a business parking lot. There's no reason for it to be there. And all I got was, like, they were shocked I was calling about that.
Okay.
So this is what we're seeing on our end.
Appreciate that. Let's talk about the person sleeping. We have a group of people in Wetaskiwin who live on the streets. They've done that by
I
choice.
just have one more thing to add. The gentleman's actually missing now, the one that we've called for several times.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but like we've tried.
Yep. And we've dealt with him on several occasions now. We have a group of folks that have decided that for either addiction reasons or personal reasons or bad fortune that they've decided to live on the streets in Wetaskiwin. We've been able to put together some emergency funding last year in February till April to run a shelter out of the old Civic Center in town here. The city secured that funding. The city has secured funding again to run that shelter again this winter. Sir, how long are we going to? Are we going to April again or? April 1st, yeah. We were able to reduce the calls for service for calls like that by over 50%, having the center up and running. Our prisoner count was down 50%. Now, as far as those folks that are living on the street and or are a nuisance to homeowners, or they're in a vestibule, or they're in a stairwell of an apartment, or whatever, yes, those are nuisance. If those people are just sleeping there and just sleeping, we will attempt to move them along. If they're able to get up and move on their own and get in a direction, we'll tell them to get on with yourself and move on to where you can have a place to sleep. If they have no place to sleep, and we have concern that for their own safety that we need to care for them, then we will take them into custody and we will take them back to the cells and we will sober them up and then release them, usually in the morning with no charge. It's a frustrating, another piece of our policing that we have to deal with. But again, we're putting strategies in place to try and get something permanent for that piece. And the city's been working on trying to get funding and working through with other agencies, as well as leveraging the provincial government to try and get funding to run that program year-round. Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question about prolific offenders.
Yes, ma'am.
Our house has been broken into 5 times.
Oh, okay. Sorry?
Since Christmas.
Your house itself?
Yes, 5 times.
Okay.
And you call the RCMP every time, and they know the group that's doing it.
Okay, where do you live?
Ego, and
where do you live?
In Wetaskiwin.
In the city, or do you live in the country?
Yeah. So we've actually had the people in the backyard, and all the RCMP officers can do is escort them off the property. So they know the people, and when we phone them, they actually giggle at us and say, "Oh yeah, we know him well. We arrest him all the time, but he's out the next day." And breaking into my house. So how do you guys label them prolific, or does the court system label them?
Well, prolific offender is a bit of a sliding scale terminology.
Like, not calling the RCMP, they can't do it.
I tell you what, I'd like to get your name after and just get some more details from you, just to kind of look into that piece. If you've been broken into 5 times and we were there and the bad guys were there and they didn't go to jail, that's an issue.
They get trail cams, we want trail cams, and still trail cams.
Yeah.
Just like, what do you want to do?
I'll find you after. We'll get some details from you, and I'll look into the complaint. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question about your 911 system.
Yes.
Now, we have been burglarized 3 times, attempted.
Okay.
We have cameras. I actually had the burglars trying to break into my house.
Yeah.
I call 911. Give me Wetaskiwin RCMP immediately. I'm in the progress of a B&E.
Okay.
What's your name, ma'am? What's your phone number? What's your phone? 2 minutes later, now I'm transferred. I'm still watching them on the camera. I get to your detachment now. They need all that information again. What's your name? What's your phone number? I said, I have a B&E in progress. I see them on my cameras. Dispatch now. No weapons I can see. Please. Had they dispatched originally, it was 7 minutes response time.
Okay.
In 7 minutes, I had 4 cars, and I had cops running through my yard. They were long gone 3 minutes before that. There's a problem with the system, with the initial, if you could catch them in progress.
Yes.
And I was very frightened because when they came the first time, they stole I had a spare key for my house in the garage. It was gone. My husband rekeyed the locks, but 1 week later, they were back trying that key in every door. They were there a good 2 or 3 minutes, and I'm watching it all, and I'm having a nervous breakdown on the phone. I can hardly talk to the guy. He knows I'm panicked. They're trying, if they get in my house, I'm screwed.
Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a better system to
Yeah,
get.
and what happens there, just so everybody's aware, and it's a good point, there is a delay. The original 911 goes to a 911 center to start with. It's called PSAP. It goes there first, and then they decide 3 ways: police, fire, ambulance, right? And then they will divert directly to the agency or the service that's required. So we do have that first little bit, but they take and ask those questions, and I know it's frustrating. They take that in case the line gets dropped, and we need to know who we're sending them to. Often our 911 dispatchers will take the call from PSAP. The line drops, they phone PSAP back and say, hey, do you got any details on where that was? We want to send somebody, but they don't have the information. So you're right, there's a bit of a gap there. But the next piece is at our center, and I sit here, my wife sits right there. See this ear? It's gone, right? My wife works at the 911 center in Edmonton. And I'm not making an excuse here now, but their 911 operators, a good chunk of them are very new, okay? If you're lucky to get the 911 operator that's been working there for 6, 8, 12, 13 years, it's just like winning the lottery and getting the policeman that's got 8, 9, 13 years service, right? We don't have very many of those. Anybody who's got 13 or 14 years service in the RCMP right now has three hooks, and they're a sergeant, and they're a watch supervisor somewhere. So if you get the right 911 operator, they'll just say, yeah, who are you? Where are you? And that just a second, they'll already call us and say, get going to this address. Then they'll come back on the line and start taking the details. Doesn't mean that we're not coming, even though you're asking all those questions and stuff. They should be saying, yeah, they're on their way. Now give me some details, right? Now, if you missed that piece, I appreciate it's frustrating, and I appreciate the panic that you must have been going through at the time. I know I would be angry, right? But there are bits and pieces of this. It goes to this person, it goes to that person, and then it's got to go to us. And then if you get the member that doesn't know where Willow Drive is, they got here last week, they're going to be looking it up and or relying on the people that they work with saying, well, that's over on the other side of town. So I understand your frustration. In our main dispatching, especially when you call the non-emergency line, wait times are long on that, way too longer than I would like to have. But it really does come down to a capacity issue. Our 911 centers are understaffed, and they do what they can with the number of people that they have. You have to remember that the 911 center out of Edmonton takes everything from the Kavanaugh overpass north. From the BC border to the Saskatchewan border to the Northwest Territories. All of that area is dispatched at a 911 center in Edmonton. Everything south of there is done at a Red Deer. There's only 2 911 centers for us in the province.
Can I ask you a question, and I don't know if you're going to answer me or not.
I'll do my best.
I had someone at my door at 3 o'clock in the morning trying to get in 3 days ago.
Okay.
If I was to take a weapon and stand at the door and say, get off my porch now, I've called 911. Would I be in trouble for that? I'm not using it, I'm not opening my door, but I'm letting them know that if you're coming in my house, I'm armed.
Bear spray.
Prohibited weapon, but... okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. This is usually...
I want to know how far I can go to protect myself.
Any person in this room can use as much force as necessary to protect themselves from death or grievous bodily harm. And if that's using a weapon, so be it. But here's the thing, and this is the conversation that usually comes up in our rural meetings. We talk about it a lot. I call it the elephant in the room. And I ain't scared to have the conversation. Good question.
Thank you.
I have a gun on my hip. Okay? I can use that firearm to protect myself and or any other person who may be suffering death or grievous bodily harm. Right? If I shoot and kill somebody with this firearm, there's a group called ACERT out of Edmonton, which is the provincial watchdog, so to speak, investigators that handle all police-involved events where someone dies or is badly injured. There's a homicide investigation, all right? If I got a bad guy coming out of a bank and he's got a gun in his hand and I say, stop police, drop the gun, and he does, and he turns around and I shoot and kill him, there's a homicide investigation that is underway and it's dealt with by way of ACERT, right? I'm investigating for homicide. Now, dust settles, video cameras, other witnesses. Hey, cop did what he had to do. We just had one here in the EPS. They just announced it here a couple of days ago. They killed the guy back September 7, 2017, deemed to be justified. Okay, you guys heard the details. But here's the thing. If someone's coming up your walk and going to kick in your front door, and they have evil in their heart, and you know beyond a doubt that you're going to suffer death or grievous bodily harm, you can do whatever you want to them. But here's the thing. We're coming. We're going to do an investigation, and it better be that way. All right? And I use this out in the country. Somebody comes in, they got a weapon, and you're fear death or grievous bodily harm for you and your family. You dust the guy off the front porch, and he's laying in a puddle at the bottom of the stairs. We're coming, and there's going to be an investigation. I don't want to make light of this, but really, every situation is different. If you decide to pull a pin on some bear spray and spray somebody, we're coming to do an investigation. If you're deemed to be using that weapon without cause or without the right risk to you, then there's going to be problems. There's a new act for property owners now where you can't get sued. But the thing is, that's a little different. If someone walks up, you're going to do a break and enter, and they use your ladder, climb up on your roof and fall off and hurt themselves, you can't get sued anymore because they're on your property doing crime. great law, actually. Surprising it took this long. But the issue is, if you're using a weapon on somebody or something like that, you better be justified. Because if you're dusting the end gate of a pickup truck that's going down your lane with a shotgun, you're going to be in trouble.
So you can't protect your property. You can only protect yourself.
You can only protect yourself. You cannot protect your property. And that's what rule in the state is. What's that case law? I can't remember. It's on the tip of my tongue. The Castle Law or something like that. Yes, ma'am. Glasses.
There's a couple out there that are stealing bikes every day.
Okay.
I see them all the time. Ride bikes and take one along. So, look, what are you guys doing with them? Like, we know who they are. I don't even know these people, but why are you like letting them do it? They do it every day.
Up and down 43rd. That's all you see. They've got trailers loaded.
Yeah,
Okay.
trailers and everything. Why
Good point.
do you give up
They
those?
go to 55th on 43rd.
My friend's kid's bike was stolen like 3 or 4 times already. Out of the yard. Stealing locks, riding locks, everything.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I want to talk about a B&E, and it's definitely not a false alarm.
Okay.
My office was broken into on Main Street,
Business.
through
yes.
the window,
Okay.
okay? Huge, the people went in through the window because the door does not have a lock, a flip lock.
Yes, ma'am.
So they go through the window. I finally get a notification from the RCMP, who actually talked to my niece who was at home because they knew she was related to me, said they had no other way of getting a hold of me. Okay? So when I arrive, I say, okay, I'll be there in 5 minutes. I arrive. There's no police presence. Okay? Whether or not there's somebody still in the building is, who knows, because there's no police there to make sure that that building has still not got someone in it. So I arrived there, disarmed the alarm, and my sensor for movement didn't go off in the front. So I disarmed the alarm and go inside, and my niece had said she would let them know I'm right over. I'm waiting 45 minutes, no police presence. 50 minutes, no police presence. So I call and say, okay, what is going on here? So then they put me through to the officer immediately, and he says, yeah, I was there, but I got called away and I left. So I've got a huge hole in my building, which allows people to walk in and out. No indication that there's any checking to make sure that there's nobody still inside that building. And is that protocol?
Again, when we were talking about earlier, depending on what he got called away to go to. I'd love to say, yeah, you stay there until such time as the property owner gets there. So to ensure we have to protect property. It's one of our things. But again, without knowing what the member got called away to go to, I can't really say. If it was a person's crime in progress, a domestic or some sort of major event going on somewhere in the city, and we were running short that night, then yeah, it could be that he left that scene to go do something of a higher priority.
Okay.
Really
Okay,
shouldn't happen that often, but it could have.
So then my question is, not knowing if there's anyone in the building when I arrive, could this not have been a crime where
In progress?
In progress?
Yes, could be. So yourself, I would have waited. Called back again and say, hey, listen, I don't feel comfortable going into that in there because you were here, you're not here, I don't know if there's somebody did the police go in and check it? We don't know, right? They could have said, yeah, I was just there, I left 2 seconds ago, I went in and checked and it was all good. Or not. I don't know all the circumstances, ma'am. But they could have been drawn away because of a higher priority matter. Or depending on how long they're waiting, if they say, yeah, the key holder's going to be there in 10 minutes and no one shows 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes. Okay, if you're there in 5 minutes, then they got called away. Yes, sir. In the ball cap.
Regarding rural property crime.
Yes.
Can the property owners strategically place spike belts in his yard for the property crime guys?
We have to be careful if we're setting up a trap for someone. I don't want to say what you can and can't do on your property, but there is a provision on the criminal code for setting a trap for a person.
Yes.
See where I'm going with that? Depending on how you do that. It's on a case-by-case basis. But bear traps, things like that, that's a little offside. Although it's on your property, I get that. But if you're setting up something to purposely harm somebody to try and protect property, that could be problematic.
But we're just trying to flatten your tires so you can't go anywhere.
What if somebody gets out of their car and steps on it? Again, case by case, sir. Yes, sir. Glasses in the back. Sorry, say louder, sir. Okay. Crime severity index.
There's two things I noticed which are very annoying. One thing is that some of the crimes occur at nighttime, and I know that you may be understaffed and maybe whatever, but these people take sloths and they'll do the same crime, breaking and entering cars and smashing windows. That's a huge effect on the taxpayer.
Yes.
And it's a huge problem with the person who's got to go to work. And it seems like these people, I don't know whether the police catch them or whether they put it in a court case, but I've noticed from a personal experience where I went with a neighbor of mine, a good friend, at least 4 or 5 times to court for one person who was a repeat offender, and not just in this area, but in 2 or 3 other areas, and he got off about 4 or 5 times. And boy, that's frustrating. And I'm not blaming the police at this point.
Yep.
I'm saying I think our court systems are too lenient.
Yes, sir. I would agree.
Really unfair.
I would agree.
But this leading crime system really has to stop for the people who are victims.
Yes, sir.
And they just seem to want to go from one block to another block to another block. That's bad news for us as taxpayers. It's bad news for us as having to get insurance increased. It's bad news for us when people keep on repeating these offenses in the same area. I know that's difficult for you guys, but what's being done about the evening crime?
All I can say is, sir, is increased patrols, and we're waiting for a call for service. We are thin, but we're not so thin that we can't get to calls for service like that. They are hard to prove unless we get a very good description of 2 or 3 people that are doing this, or the one person that's doing that, and we're able to find them in the immediate area. Sometimes if they're not stealing anything, then it's, we could very well detain them and search them incidental to being detained. But again, unless we have some property to put back to a vehicle or something like that, it's problematic. Not insurmountable, but problematic.
But I'm guessing that these people are going to be intelligent. I'm guessing they're going to keep watching out for both ends, which is unfortunate.
Yes.
But it can really be devastating.
Yes.
And I don't know if anything's effectively being done to stop it. And by effectively, I mean from a person's viewpoint, not from the police viewpoint, the court viewpoint. But this city has a very bad record.
Yes.
And it's a slap in the face for us.
I'll get to crime severity index in a second, and what you mentioned there about being #1 in the province. I'll get to that in a second, this lady here.
So I saw your blog talk on the thing there. How come you haven't updated since September 30th?
It gets updated as things get entered into the system. It gets updated.
So why haven't you done anything since September 30th?
You know what? I'm going to refer you over to Bruce. Where's Bruce? Bruce right here. He's the block talk guy, or one of the experts. It could be your settings in your phone that only allows you to see certain things. So unless it's in one of the zones that you actually are, there's filters on Block Talk, and if you action the filters, you can only see one part of the county or one part of the area, or you might only just get Calgary. Okay, but there could be some problematic things there. Crime severity index, we want to do that, or we want to just take a couple more questions? We'll take a couple more questions first. Yes, sir.
How about all the people hanging out? My family won't go to the library anymore because they harass them for money.
Yeah.
I run a business by Canadian Tire. I lose tenants because they're out there harassing them. There's litter everywhere. They have no respect for people at all.
Yeah.
And I told a police officer one time, I said, this is going to break me. I'm just going to end up killing one of these guys because they'll say the wrong thing to me, I'll do the wrong thing, and that's not going to be nice. And I know it's going to be my fault because I'm in charge of my actions. They're not in charge of anything.
Yeah. Again, all I can say, sir, is call that in. Either ourselves or our CPOs can deal with that. Panhandling or aggressive panhandling is covered under a bylaw in town as well. Yes, sir.
I read a story, I don't know if it's true this week, that there is an Indigenous lawyer in this area asking that repeat non-violent offenders, Aboriginals in prison, could be released because they're no danger to the public. Is that true?
I'd have to get you to show me. I remember hearing a movement like that a little while ago. I haven't heard of it recently. But yes, and there's also some other federal case laws there with regards to the Gladue rule and things like that, where holding Indigenous youth specifically in custody without bail, you got to have some really heavy justification on why we're holding those individuals without bail. It's a little bit of a frustrating stuff sometimes, especially if those individuals happen to be prolific offenders or not. We have all different races of prolific offenders, but in those particular cases, there are some case laws that do fall into that category. Now, I'm not sure specifically of what you're talking about. I did remember hearing something about this several months ago.
Is there a local Aboriginal female lawyer?
Could be. Could be.
Wilton, but
yeah.
Is there another one?
Sorry?
He's apparently heading with...
If you give me a name, I think I'd be able to say yes or no, but I'm not going to know conversation. Yeah, okay. Yes, sir.
What do you know about the provincial deal bringing in the sheriffs and the Fish and Wildlife officers?
Great question. Thanks. Talked about that one a little bit earlier. It's called the RAPID program, and what the concept of this from the Solicitor General is gun, badge, closest person goes. Doesn't matter whether you're a fish cop, a truck cop, a sheriff, or one of us. Concept's got some merit. It's got some ideas there. I like it. The only part that's problematic at this point in time is the logistics behind that. How do I know that there's 2 fish cops out at Pigeon Lake that are way closer to a call for service than my guys are? That's the problem. Our conservation guys and our, I call them Fins and Feathers. The fish cops, they're great guys. They're armed. They're great police officers. They're well trained. They deal with armed bad guys daily, right? So our degree of risk for me having 2 fish cops go deal with a crime in progress is probably less so than, and I don't want to knock the truck guys, but you know, weights and measures and those guys going, okay, appreciate that. They might need a little more help. But the concept of the RAPID program and the minister saying we're going to put 300 more, 500 more boots on the ground, I get where he's coming from on that, but logistically, I'm not quite sure how they're going to roll that.
Sure, it scares me because I know some of them, what you call them, like the DOT guys.
Yeah.
I hate to see some.
Good guys.
Good guys, but I hate to see some.
And I hate to say it, you know, they're in their lane. You know, they're very, very, very knowledgeable people in what they do and in their lane. But again, how that's going to work, what sort of training do they have to get in order to bring them up to the right level? It's going to be a logistic beast there, and I'm not quite sure. I wish them all the best. I'm waiting to see exactly how that's going to roll. But if they're able to do that, again, we've got a whole raft of extra guns and badges out there that can start being leveraged, right?
Okay, thank you.
But it's a very good question, sir. Yes, sir, in the back.
Seeing where your performance plan addresses damage to businesses or shoplifting or theft from businesses.
Right. Again, it's under the property crime angle. It's not as prevalent and or as it all falls underneath property crime. There is some of that on a regular, we don't see it on a real regular basis, but on a scale of priority, break and enters come first, and then the mischief to property comes out. It does fall underneath property crime. It's coming down. All property crime except for break and enters are going in a downward trend. But it's the break and enters that are up significantly that's kept us from having some real good results in bringing it down. All the crime types in the rural area, including property crime, are downward and into double-digit down. But you're right, so problematic, damage to property, business owner, multiple windows getting broken or something like that. Yeah, it's tough on a small business owner for sure. Yes, sir.
Two questions. One question is, I'm hearing a trend of communication, maybe lack of communication. What policies do the RCP Wetaskiwin have in place to make sure citizens are followed up with the case, whether it's closed or not closed, or things are happening? You and I have talked in the past, and I have had some follow-up, but other cases haven't had any follow-up.
Right.
And sometimes even when someone calls and says, hey, we couldn't find that person, it's 5 months later, the case is closed. That could be, it could be reassuring or not reassuring.
Sure.
But, so that's one question. The second question is, are we fully utilizing our county and city police officers to take care of the non-criminal code cases so your members can focus on the serious issues like break and enter?
So, yeah, so originally on your first part of your question, part A, in policy, you get a call for service, you're the member involved, you're the lead investigator, there should be a call back to, and before you throw too many darts, there should be a call back to the complainant saying what we did and the results. It may be they call you 5 minutes after you called, you have a conversation with them and say, okay, thank you very much, we'll put that information over to the crime reduction team, or we'll look for that vehicle over the next several hours, and if we find anything, we'll let you come back. You may not get a call back on that particular file, but if you have a theft or a break and enter and you have items missing or whatever, you should be getting a call back from the original member that took the complaint and came and took the statement from you. If you don't, you should be calling the office and saying, hey, I need an update on my file. Who is it? That's got it, right? If you have the file number, that's the best way to get it to us, is we have a file number system, and you give me the file number, I'll find out who the lead investigator is, and we'll say Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Why didn't you call that guy back, right? Our guys are people, right? Sometimes performance is way up here, sometimes we don't get the full pull, right? So, yes, ma'am.
I would really like to say thank you to the RCMP at the same time as I complained about 911.
Yep.
Because I do have to say we've had several dealings. We're ex-military, so we're very active in our community. We're looking. That car doesn't belong here. I haven't seen, that car's been up and down my alley 5 times today, and they don't live here. We go out, we take a picture of the car. We send it to the police. We call not on your 911 line.
Sure.
But we have a suspicious vehicle in the area. Here's the plate. Call 2 minutes later. Thank you very much. It's a stolen car. We're on our way.
Yep.
I think as citizens we need to pay attention to help the police try and get these guys stopped from what they're doing. Because they will not stop as long as it continues. They already know the court system is not going to do anything for them. They get out and the next night they're back in your yard again. We've chased them off. We've had lots of stuff for the next door neighbor's yard. Bags of stuff. Husband's like, what the hell's going on over there? Out the door. Hey! They drop everything and they're gone.
Yep.
So I think we as citizens, I mean, I'm 61 years old. I don't run out in the street at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I mean, there's a lot of elderly people in town too. But if you just kind of pay attention, there's something where it shouldn't be. Somebody's been up and down this street for a week in the alley and they don't live here. If we could give the police a heads up, maybe, just maybe, if they know something's going down in an area, they can have that extra vigilance there to finally get these guys, or at least start deterring them.
And that segues into the other half of the question that I didn't quite answer for you. Our CPOs are out there on the street at the same time we are. And the community police officers, they don't have criminal code authority, so they can't investigate a break and enter. They can't investigate a theft of vehicle or a shoplifter. There are some studies going on that they're looking at trying to increase that authority so that they can do minor thefts. Where's the pilot run it? Cochrane or something?
Grand Prairie.
Grand Prairie's doing it?
City, county, and...
City, yeah. So there's some pilots running in Alberta that are looking at engaging the CPOs even more to, say, handle the minor shoplifting and things like that. So our members won't be tied up doing that. We're doing the other bigger stuff. Again, you hit the nail right on the head, man. It's your neighborhood. You know what belongs and what doesn't belong. Vehicle description, plate number if you can get it. I want to stress one thing, though. If you're going to go out and challenge these people, be careful. These people will, and I'll be boldly honest with you, these people do not care. They will run you over, right? If they're on a vehicle, they're running into us, and they're trying to run us over. Now, a good chunk of it is, do they actually have evil in their heart to try and run down a cop? No, they're just trying to get away. But regardless, they will do whatever they can to try and get away. And you just don't want to be anywhere near that. Let us do the thing. Your weed whacker is not worth you getting hurt badly. Let her go. And we'll do our best to try and get it back. Yes, ma'am?
The bike gang.
Bike gang?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the trailers that they have on.
And they have what? Trailers?
Trailers that have gone behind their bike.
Okay.
And see them all over.
Right.
You must,
you guys must.
We see them.
Read Grand Prairie. Every
I
single
don't read Grand Prairie
You should.
very
You
often.
should. You would be
And I
very
don't read
happy.
Grand Prairie for a reason.
You should.
I'd be ranting and raving.
You should.
But yeah, we don't have an over large issue with bike gangs in Wetaskiwin. They're traveling through, they're around in the area. Yes, you'll see a Hells Angel member, you'll see a patch on their back. Oh, the pedal bike gangs. Oh, okay. Those bike gangs. Yes. They are on our radar as far as anything on two wheels, two legs.
What can we do?
If it's suspicious activity, then call it in and say, hey, this guy's wearing a black jacket, a red ball cap, and he's riding a purple bike, and he's got a trailer on the back and a dog sticking out, and he's casing the place, or he's going through vehicles or whatever. Sorry?
Even if they've been there 2 hours prior? Call them back.
Call it in. It could be we're dealing with him because his dog bit somebody. You just don't know. Anything else? Any other priorities? Anything that we think we should be working on as one of the major priorities, as one of our policing priorities? Yes, sir.
Reporting crimes.
Yes.
Is there an easier way of doing that? Is there a way you can email it in or text it in?
I wish.
You call that other number.
I wish.
In 20, 25 minutes.
Not at this point. The RCMP's tech propeller only goes so fast. We are not to the point yet, like EPS, where you can email a complaint in. Not yet. We're getting there, but we're not quite there yet. At this point in time, the only way actually to either walk into the attachment, make a formal complaint, or call the complaint line and put the complaint in.
That's even hard to do too. I went down to the
I appreciate that. Yeah.
report our car got broken into.
Yes.
And I made the mistake of saying it was my wife's car, and I got told she had to come down and fill it out, and then I did.
Yeah.
So she never went down.
Problematic.
So that could be why crime rates are going down in town.
I don't think that's all that's going on, but yes, could be. Yes, sir.
Yeah, you were going to speak to the crime severity index.
Sure, I'll get on that.
What that adds to.
So, you're next, sir. I'll say, you put your arm down, I'll get you next. Okay, crime severity index. Okay, so every crime has a value. Homicide being the highest value, of course, because it's the worst crime. Aggravated assaults, assault with a weapon, those types of crimes all have a value on the crime severity index. The more serious the crime, the higher the value. We took a little bit of a hit here a little while ago. Our crime rates went up. It was a significant increase in calls for service, coupled with a couple of homicides in the city, and that drove the crime severity index up. And because we went from because we went from 8th to 4th nationally, and you got to remember that the calls for service are on a per capita basis. So there is more crime in Red Deer. There is more crime in Edmonton. But they have the population base to offset those higher numbers. Yes, we have some issues in Wetaskiwin, but our community is no less safe than, say, areas of Edmonton or areas in Red Deer. But because Red Deer has 100,000 people, they have the population to offset that crime severity index, because it's the amount of crime and the value of the crime versus the population of only 12,600 people that live in Wetaskiwin. So that's why, and it doesn't take much, because we only have 12,600 people. It doesn't take much for, we have a run of 20 extra B&Es in a year, plus 3 homicides, and we have 4 armed robberies extra. Twick, we go up. And the reason we made the McLean's article is because we moved the most. It wasn't because we were any worse off. We were a little bit worse off than we were the year before, but because we moved up more than everybody else, they singled us out to come and do an article and ask us all about our stuff and all that sort of stuff. So Thompson and North Battleford are still number 1 and number 2 in the country, right? They've already done an article on Battleford. They've already done an article on Thompson. So McLean goes, oh, let's pick on Wetaskiwin. They are the one that moved the most. Let's go talk to them. So we've been sitting number 1 in the province per capita, and we're number 4. We went from 3 to 4. We actually came down this last year from 3 to 4 nationally. Okay, but again, it's per capita, right? I was here in 2005, and yes, we've had an increase in crime from then, but Wetaskiwin is no worse off or more unsafe than it was 15 years ago.
The other side of that, though, is more of us in this room are more likely to be affected by that crime.
For sure, yeah. Yeah, absolutely, it's relevant, yeah. But again, the reason we got singled out by McLean's was because we moved the most. Everybody else kind of maybe ticked up a little bit, and some other people went down, but because we went from 8th to 4th, McLean's came out and said, what's going on?
Does the RCMP allow for additional resourcing for you to combat?
No, sir. What drives resources specifically in the city is criminal code file per member and criminal code file per population. Okay, and those are the kind of the metrics that headquarters use in the PRM, what I talked about, the police resource methodology, that says, okay, Keith, you should have 25 members, or you should have 28 members, or you should have 30 members, right? That's what drives how many members we should have. Now, I can go to the city, and I can say, Mayor, I'd like 6 more members. Can I have 6 more? But you got to remember, that comes with a huge cost. Although we're way cheaper than some other police forces out there, we're still costly. It's still expensive. Policing is expensive. We don't write enough tickets to get enough revenue off of tickets to pay for all the members in Wetaskiwin. You guys would not like it if we had to pay for our salaries by giving you guys tickets. Trust me on that. But the way it goes is usually criminal code file per member, criminal code file per population. We see a big jump, and it's a sustained jump, right? If we can get on those 8 to 10% of the bad guys doing 80% of the time and stay on them, this is the problem we have in Wetaskiwin, is sustainability. I can keep my crew team on those guys, and we can stay on them for a whole year. We'll get the numbers going in the right direction. But often is the case is we get the crew guys going in one direction on one particular crime type, and then we get pulled away onto something else. Because we don't quite have enough to do it all. So the guys get pulled over into, okay, we have a, whatever, let's call it a homicide. We have a homicide. Well, we got to deal with that with the number of members that we have on time at the day in which that comes in. It could be 2 o'clock in the morning, and we've got to utilize every member we got that's working to work that crime scene. Depending if it, and then of course you got to remember, containing that crime scene can be a block long sometimes, and you just can't hold that scene with only 1 member. You need 3, 2, 4. and then we just get our people strung out to the point where now I have to take people off of prolific offender management to go to regular calls for service. And it's a bit of a vicious cycle. And it's, hey, I got big broad shoulders, I'm a big boy, I can handle that. But being able to keep our prolific offenders under check and keeping our crime reduction team on the prolific offenders is the key. Last year or so ago, both members in the crime reduction team, pat leave. They're entitled, right? They're entitled to X number of months of pat leave, and they took the pat leave at the same time. Nothing we can do about that. So they're going to go on their pat leave. Now my team is now 50% of what it used to be, and then we lose that contained effort on those people, right? So these are the real world issues of Wetaskiwin.
How many members would it take for these problems that the police have to not be problems? Like, clearly, if you're at a murder scene and you have 4 police officers, there's not police officers driving around looking at people breaking into houses. So what's the number? Like, how much would we need to make a difference? Like, if you had 6 members, how much does it drop? If you had 20 members, how much would it drop?
I can't give you an exact measure on that. I'd have to take that number and go back to my people and say, okay, bean counter, give me a result of 6 members. What would that look like?
But what's your frustration then? Like, where are you bogged down? What is your wish for Wetaskiwin's RCMP or crime? Like, how do you solve it if you had unlimited resources?
Sorry?
If you had unlimited resources, how would you solve the problem? Unlimited.
If I could get 1 more member per watch, 4, that would make a big dent in managing the shortfalls. That person that calls in sick, the guy who is away on training, we need to train our people, that person needs to go away. Another person's on holidays, 1 more per watch, we'd be close.
And is the loss that's occurring because of that missing member less than the amount that we would have to pay as this community to get that member?
That's a big number. I don't know. I'd really have to grind some numbers to determine what that would be. But you have to understand that members are not cheap, right? It cost, could be, could very well be. Sorry? They just through they would increase from not 100% of the time, but with more members we can do more. But again, you got to remember that when they do the police officer methodology, it all depends on how well we're organizing those members when we do have them, right? And keeping them focused on what you guys think the priorities are. I could say, okay, I want 5 more members and I want to put 1 member in every school. Well, it'd be great for school interaction and youth and that sort of stuff, but really that's not where we need the bang for buck. The bang for buck is in property crime and staying on top of these prolific offenders. Right? The money you got to hand it to the city. They've ponied up the dough for 4.5 more members over the last 3 years. Now, are we where the PRM says we should? No, we're still a little bit short of that goal. But 1 more member per watch would go a long way to trying to ease the pressure and then not having to collapse one team to come over and help another team and keeping those members focused on what their mandate would be.
Wouldn't there be a cheaper alternative to perhaps hire more peace officers at a lower cost to watch these people, or even hire a private security?
Remember, we can't have peace officers watching prolific offenders. It's criminal code work. Yes, you could probably watch them, but they couldn't do anything if they were stepping outside the box.
Right. So someone that's watched, though, will still...
I think of the policing budget is a big pie, right? And the city goes, okay, that big piece goes to the RCMP, this piece goes into bylaw, problem residences, snow removal, nuisance properties, dogs, you name it, all those other things that cause people grief inside a city. And there's so many members to do that type of work, right? Some communities, like St. Albert, and Stony Plain, and some of the other ones around the hub there, their big thing is traffic. People speeding and passing and talking on their phones and all those types of problems. So their concern more so is the motoring public and their kids going to school and accidents and things like that. Okay, well then that particular city may say, okay, I want a 5-member traffic unit to go out there and curtail and get on top of those motorists and do enforcement on them to get them to slow down. Okay? So all depending on the community, it all depends on what their pressures are on how you divide up that pie. But you got to remember, in the end, there's only so much money in the bucket, right? And eventually that bucket comes short. And 4 more members per watch, 1 more member per watch, 4 more members would be a % increase, or probably, what would it be, sir? 2% maybe? Closer to 3% increase in your taxes. Right. Okay. So, yes, ma'am.
Do you have control, or is it dictated to, like, for instance, there's obviously a lot of, once you get into breaking entries that are happening, do you have the control to assign another member to have an extra body during these key hours of the evening from, whatever, 11 to 3 in the morning, and maybe less of a day shift for a period of 3 months? Or, like, do you have that control?
Kinda, inside the budget that I'm allowed and the number of members that I have. I'm not going to lie to you folks, we struggle sometimes just to get enough members on the road to get out there and do it safely with the numbers that we have. Right? When we have major events, the Manny's Fire, 2 members, 24 hours a day, we don't close, we're doing scene security there until such time as that thing's all mopped up and done. That was a significant budget hit, sorry sir, to the municipal cost center. That's going to take a big hit. What that takes away from is in the summertime, and you guys may have seen this, we do what's called suppression. What we do is we'll bring in members on overtime and we'll put 12 extra cops on the road on a Friday night. And we'll stop anything on 2 wheels, 4 wheels, 2 feet, 4 feet, you name it. Anybody who walking around, and if they're doing something that they shouldn't be and we have a statutory reason to stop them, we'll stop them. And what are you doing? Where are you going? Who are you? Oh, I'm just coming home from bingo. Okay, have a good night. See ya. Right? Tail light out. That's it. I stopped one guy for the 3rd time over by the hospital that night when we were working suppression. He said, man, I got stopped 3 times. Same tail light. Well, maybe it's time you took your car home. 3 letters there. I can imagine what they are. It starts with P, ends in S, right? Take this home, because I'm going to stop, somebody else is going to stop you again. So these suppression shifts go a long way to talking about the bike people. The guys that are walking up and down the alley. Who are you? Where are you going? We see them. They're walking down an alley. Now, there's nothing wrong with walking down an alley. But they come out of the alley, and they walk diagonally over there. Well, now they're a jaywalker. Okay, we need a statutory reason to stop them, right? You're a jaywalker. Who are you? Give me some ID. And it's that suppression. If we could keep that on every night, there'd be very little crime left in Wetaskiwin if we had that number of members every single night. But it's financially, can't keep it going. So if I have extra money in the budget, if we've saved throughout the year, and we don't have 3 or 4 major events like the Manny's Fire that completely hammers the overall policing budget for the year, then we can put some of these extra shifts on. And we have some very good results with those. Yes, sir?
I don't want to knock upon my officers because I know they do a good job and I do care. But during the day, this was her question, during the day, when you drive by the detachment, there's no running cars in the parking lot because the officers are out working. It's yourself and the sergeant and the pump detachment taking care of things. But in the evenings, you'll drive by and you'll see 3 to 5 cars running, and then a call comes through, and all at the same time, and then 20 minutes later, they're back in the detachment. So what can we put in place to make sure when you're not in the building, things are actually happening in the field?
Yeah, I got to beat up my corporal. He's the one who manages that piece. And it all depends on how much stuff the members have on their plate. Remember we talked about having really good quality work going out the door so that we're not the linchpin on why that thing's getting kicked out of court. Unfortunately, and this is where, again, kudos to the city and others who've come up with some extra money for support staff. Okay? When I was Joe Kupak Copper and I only had 3 or 4 years service, I did everything. I typed all the reports. I typed all the information. I did all the release documents. It was my file from end to end. And I had to do this. We now have full-time watch clerks that work with the watch 24 hours a day we have a watchman, because we can. We have a watch clerk following the members' watch, and they do all the data entry, they do all the typing, they type the informations, they type the reports, they do all that admin stuff so that the members can be back out on the road. But there are still key reports and things that the members have to do in order to make sure that that file's tight.
Can they do that on the road?
Sometimes they can, sometimes they can't.
Like I'll give you one officer, Carberry, a phenomenal officer,
Yeah.
and you will see him sitting on Main Street or 53rd, watching people go back and forth, and you stop and talk to him, and he says, I'm doing paperwork, but I'm watching 53rd because it's a busy street.
Yeah.
But he's one of 20 officers you see sitting there, that's on his phone.
Yeah.
So,
Some do, some don't. Some do consistently, some don't. Performance, they're people. We have to manage them. Some have to manage harder than others. Sometimes it's whoa, 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 right? But yes, some of the forms they can do in the car. Sometimes they can't. Our IT logistics of the computers in the car, they have their limitations. They're way better than they used to be. When I first got mine, it was bang, bang, close it, try it again, log in, drive down the road, hit a dark spot, logs you out, have to log back in. This is how I did police work when I first started. It's a different area now. Yes, sir?
How many of we've heard about all these break and entries.
Yes.
How many are going to get convicted for that? How many
Depends how many
cases
we
are going to
charge.
close?
Sorry?
How many are you going to send to court?
How many we're going to solve to a crime, to a charge? Not as high as the number I'd like. It's probably about 26%. And around there somewhere, 30% will be cleared by a charge, others not.
How are you going to get that higher number up, like 80% to 20%?
Specifically on break and enters, it's difficult because it's usually a crime that there's no witness to. Sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. Sometimes we can get them in possession of stolen property after the break and enter. We do an interview saying, hey, this stereo was stolen from that house over there. I don't know, I got it from Joe. Joe who? I don't know, he was just on the street, Joe. Can't solve the break and enter, but I can charge the guy with possession of stolen property. So sometimes we don't solve the B&E, but we lay a different charge, and they still have to face that charge. Yes, sir?
Okay, a two-part question, and the first part is your opinion now. In your opinion, as taxpayers, the city and the province and Canada, what can we do to try to help get more police officers available as taxpayers? That's the first question. The second question is one that may be wrapped up in a myth, and I'm not clear of that, and it's the drug, which affects a lot of people. It affects parents, it affects the grandparents, the schools, the teachers, the hospital. And it's not just a policeman, of course, but in your view, what would be a solution to that which would be reasonable? So two questions.
Okay, the second piece of that, because I can't remember the first part now, but second piece is the drug issue, that sort of stuff. We have a model called the hub model, and it was brought to the province, and the idea, the concept was started by the now Chief of Edmonton City Police, McGee? Can't remember his name. Anyway, he was in Prince Albert, he was in PA, and he brought what's called the hub model, and we now do that. We've had it going for a little over a year in Wetaskiwin. And what that does is if we have a prolific offender that has a substance abuse problem or has a problem with the fact that he can't get a job or whatever the case may be, or we're engaging a lot with the youth in Wetaskiwin to try and break that cycle of becoming an offender, we get all the social agencies in town into one room and we have a meeting. And if we find somebody who's a frequent user of the EHS, the mental health, unemployment insurance, the criminal system, whatever, we bring that person's name towards the hub and they say, well, this guy has an addiction issue. Well, here we are from ADAC, we're going to help them. How long until the police matters are all done? Well, then the constable that's in the room can say, yeah, he's going in front of the judge here in another month. And, we got enough time to get, say, maybe a predisposition. Oh, probation, you're at the table too. Can you put your 2 cents with? So what we're doing is we're getting all the social agencies and also the government agents together in one room. We're taking our shoulder flashes off and our egos and checking them at the door, and we're looking at working with these offenders and or these frequent users of services in order to try and get them down the right path so they're not continuing to use services. It's one piece. First question again, sir? Oh, numbers?
We pay taxes to the city, we pay
right.
taxes to the government, we pay taxes to the country. We're one of the most overpaid tax places in the world. But having said that, if what the city needs is more police officers and it's an economic problem, how do we try to help that issue?
Okay. What we need from the policing agency point of view is we need you guys to leverage your MLAs and your MPs. We talked about the judicial system, we talked about the judges and the number of prosecutors. If the courts had just a little more teeth to try and get some of these people going on the straight and narrow and going away from crime, I think we'd make a pretty good headway. Again, if we stay on top of these prolific offenders, and if I take, the whole idea is to take these guys off the playing field. And I'm talking about the bad of the bad, the worst beaniers that we've got. I'm not necessarily saying about Johnny who decides to jump over the fence and steal something out of your garage just for kicks. I'm talking about these guys that are stealing property, fencing it, going from Killam to Stony Plain, from Stony Plain to Red Deer, and doing crime all the way along. Those are the ones we're taking off the playing field because they're doing about 80% of the crime. We need leverage on the MPs and the MLAs to say we need some teeth back in our justice system. And it's not just throwing them in jail either. It's what are we doing with them when they're in jail? Okay? And this, folks, is a big beast. And this is a big dog to beat down. And without you guys leveraging the government and without leveraging your local representatives, it's going to continue to be a big dog. It's not just more cops. It's the whole piece that needs to be worked on. Okay? Yes, sir.
The thing is, our MLA is not in cabinet. You don't have much say.
Our MLA is in cabinet.
Is in cabinet. Yeah.
You don't lost the state.
Yeah. Rick Lake, Rick Wilson is well placed.
Yeah, but Lake is
Tougher yet then. Yeah, for sure. But you want to blow up his phone. That's the one you want to blow up.
Yeah, but
Mr. Lakes.
what can you do? Not much.
And what time? Are we doing on time?
20 after 8.
20 after 8? Okay. Yes, sir.
I have 2 questions. The first one is how much of a problem is fraud and identity theft and computer and cybercrime, and what are you doing about it, and is it affecting a lot of people? What's going on?
We're having some of that. That is actually trending way down in Wetaskiwin itself. We're not having a lot of frauds. But it falls under the property crime category. Do not send Bitcoin to anybody. The cops don't phone you up and say you got to pay a fine if you got a warrant. They just come and get you. Okay? Now they might phone and say, hey Joe, you got a warrant, come down to the office and deal with it. Okay, it's not the way I do it, but hey, you got a warrant, come on down here and see. If you've never been arrested, you will never have a warrant. If you've never been involved in any crime, right? I mean legit now. Like sometimes people can get a warrant without knowledge, but it's rare. They're usually a prolific offender and they're in the middle of something and we prove that they've done it. Now we got a public interest warrant for them. But if you've not been arrested and not involved in any crime, you will never have a warrant for your arrest. Okay? So do not give money, people over the phone to say you have a warrant. Do not give money to anybody over the phone. Do not give out your ID. Don't give out your driver's license, your date of birth, nothing. If your bank calls you and says, we need this, this, and this, go to the bank. I will be in tomorrow to see you. Okay? If it stinks, it's a fraud probably. If it makes no sense, it's a fraud. Okay? They phoned me and said, hey, you got a warrant for your arrest. I'm going to come arrest you. Giddy up. Come on down. Bring a couple of your friends. Let's go. Right? Because I'm bringing a few of mine. Okay? So, frauds, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true. Right? I got called by a guy from Spain, a lawyer from Spain, saying that I was the inheritance of $3.3 million and that you were the last known descendant, and a big saga, right? Got an email from this lawyer saying, you send me $10,000 and I'll put this through the courts for you and I'll get your inheritance sent to Canada. You're talking to the wrong Durrance. Mr. Durrance is still alive. He gets the first cut. It's a scam. It's a scam. Indonesian prince, whatever, left you a bunch of cash. It just doesn't happen, folks. It doesn't happen. It's a fraud. Do not give money to anybody over the phone. Yes, ma'am.
How high is your domestic violence in Wetaskiwin? Just out of curiosity.
Higher than I'd like. We're doing better because all persons crimes is in a downward trend almost to the tune of, what did we say there? I'm off the top of my head. Domestic violence is down, but it's still not eliminated. We still have an issue with that. We also have a full-time unit, one person that does just that, domestic violence. It's getting better, but we still got lots of work to do. Yeah, yes, it does. Yes, sir.
Would Wetaskiwin benefit from Citizens on Patrol?
Okay, Citizens on Patrol. Yes, they would. But sustainable, you'd have to have a really, really good, dedicated group of people that want to stay together and want to do it. We have a real robust program out of Pigeon Lake. It's got about 50 members to it. And they've decided to stay all together, and they're going to continue to patrol, continue to do their thing, and that sort of stuff. Citizens on Patrol, Bruce used to be in charge of the Citizens on Patrol here in Wetaskiwin. We had a long conversation shortly after I got here about Citizens on Patrol. RCMP will support a Citizens on Patrol program as long as there's people that want to do it. Unfortunately, the program just kind of and it went away, and the membership went down, and no one wanted to come out, and no one wanted to do things. What Bruce and I are discussing more about is putting in block watch or a neighborhood watch rather than, and I'm not saying rather than Citizens on Patrol, we'll do both. If a person wants to rekindle the Citizens on Patrol program and bring me 30 names of people that are willing to go out and do their thing, we'll be there to back you guys up. We'll do whatever it takes. Any citizen group that wants to, you can call it XYZ program, doesn't matter to me. We will be there to support the community in any of those initiatives that you want to put forth. What's happened over time, this is just my own personal opinion, not the RCMP's opinion, but we have a lot of this going on. Okay? Everybody's on their phone. Don't have time. I'm too busy. I work in the city. I'm driving back and forth. The last thing I want to do on a Thursday night at 10 o'clock is to get in my car and start driving around the streets of Wetaskiwin. Got to be pretty dedicated to do that. There are some folks that will. All I'm saying is, over the several years with tech and computers and Facebook and Twitter and Bird and all those other things, we've gotten really, really busy, and we've gone like this. Okay? That's why we don't know who our neighbor is 2 doors over. We might know what this neighbor's name is, but we don't know the guy across the street, we don't know the guy over there, and you don't know where Mrs. Jorgensen lives down the road and around the corner.
Well, it's trust too.
It is trust, ma'am, absolutely, for sure. But, and I'm not saying it's, please understand, I'm not saying it's your guys' fault. I'm just saying this is kind of the trend that's kind of moved in the last, say, 10, 15 years, right? So maybe neighborhood watch is where we go. Maybe we do block watch, where one street gets together and says, not on our block, we're going to keep an eye on our block, and we do it one block at a time. Perhaps. It's one way of looking at things. It's one way of doing things. It's not the way or the only way. It's one way. Okay? So, yes, yes, sir.
The second part of my
Sorry, did I not get it all?
My second question is,
okay.
In some communities, and it was a while ago that I saw this, in other communities, they have a map, the city or the area.
Yes. Yep.
And they would show, they do, maybe every month or whatever, they show areas
where crime is. Crime mapping, yes. We have that in Wetaskiwin. We do.
I've never seen it.
Go onto the crime mapping on the city website. There's a link that takes you. You have to query Wetaskiwin, and then you'll pull the map up, and it'll be on there. If you go to the city website and go crime mapping, there's a tab. I think it's a couple tabs over. It's up on the browser at the top. Go crime mapping, it'll take you to the link. You have to query Wetaskiwin, and then that'll open the map.
So that shows you the areas where
shows you the hot spots inside the city, or where there's more crime here or there or whatever. And you can filter it. Just you don't want to look just for B&Es. You can look for just and so on. It's not as robust as the one that we get to see. We get to see date, time, file number, and a little snippet of actually what was reported there. You guys just get, hey, there's a B&E there. And if it looks like they all happen at the corner of walk and don't walk, that's... I don't have many jokes, guys. If it looks like everything's happening at an intersection, it's the privacy of the person who's reporting that crime. We don't want to say that it happened here. What we do is we move it, we put it at the corner. And if it's in the north half of the block, it'll be in the north intersection. If it's on the south half, and the east and west, vice versa. So it looks like, holy crow, everything happened at the corner of 55 and 51. No. There's a bunch of stuff that happened on those two streets. It's just right there, and that's to give the people that are protected their anonymity a little bit. So that, oh yeah, Peterson Place got nailed again, right? Folks, I want to thank you for your time. I always enjoy having a good chinwag with you folks and getting your feedback. I like answering those tough questions, giving you my opinion. If you want it, I'll give it to you. It doesn't really matter to me. Like I said, I'm fireproof now. They can go and try and fire me tomorrow. Tyler can try and get me fired tomorrow. That's okay.
So if he did, I'd fire them.
But where I'm going with this is I enjoy answering those tough questions and giving you guys the feedback that you deserve on what's happening in your community. My guys and gals do all they can to keep you guys safe. They are super, super individuals. But you got to remember they're people too, right? They put their pants on one leg at a time, and they've got mortgages and car payments and kids and dogs and all that sort of stuff. They're people first, right? And they do as best they can with what they can based on the number of people that come to work each night. And then I'm even amazed at what they get done, even when they don't have everybody to help pull on the rope. I got some of the best folks, and they're babies, folks. I'll tell you this right now. They're absolute babies. I don't know how. I was never that young, ever. When I say they're kids, like these guys, kids, but man, they're really prepared up here and here. The tech. I mean, there isn't a member in my office right now with less than 2 years service that can't type about 80 words a minute. I still struggle at 30. Right? Like these kids can, and they can do this and watch Twitter and listen to the radio, and you know what I mean? Like they're fantastic kids, and they do a great job, and they really look out for each other, and they look out for us, and they look out for you. So I'd like to thank you for taking your time. It was a great turnout, fantastic, way better than last year. You guys blew them out of the water last year, and I really do appreciate it. I'm going to take your stuff, put it into our APP, put it to the grinder, and see what spits out at the end, and we'll put ourselves a new plan together. And I'll have something in the media saying this is what the police and fire is going to be for Wetaskiwin, and look for that in around April sometime. But again, thank you very much. Thanks for the CPOs for setting up all the chairs and making this look great. And if you have any other questions, I'll be around for a little bit. There's a couple people that had some isolated issues that I'll get your name and stuff, and then we'll have a look at what's happening there. But thank you very much.